about 300,000 people around the world who sit this exam every year. So as I was trying to say earlier, it's a global organization. We started out in the US, but very much now based all around the world. We have 151 member societies, of which CFA Society Nigeria, I think, was the 137th of those. And we were founded here when, Banji? About 2012. So we've been in country as a society for about 6 years. We have 158,000 members, of which about 300 are here in Nigeria. But I'm delighted to say that here in Nigeria, we are probably the fastest growing society that we have anywhere in the world, about 30 to 35%. So, and that's a testament to Banji and the board here, many of whom are in the room today. They do fabulous work. And my role at the Institute is really to support the society to have positive impact on the community here in Nigeria. So what we do at the center is really to try and funnel as much resource as we possibly can, as much support as we possibly can to Banji and the society here, so that he can develop the professionalism that we all want here in Nigeria. So events like this, partnerships like this with the IOD are absolutely vital to that. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be opening the Business Network for Ethics and Integrity later. We have similar ventures in many other countries around the world. Corporate governance is absolutely vital to our future. The way we think about life, the way we think about our strategy is very simple. We spend a lot of time, as I say, developing future candidates. But really what we try to do most of, what I spend most of my time on, are those last two columns in terms of our strategy. Trying to help our members maintain their professional competence, and then more than that, trying to build market integrity, working with our societies, and working most importantly with businesses who are well-intentioned, who see the point of trying to build a sustainable investment management business, working with businesses through our society to try to build a marketplace that really is geared towards serving society's interests. So, turning to the study and trying to pick out some of the highlights from it. This was done at the end of, we surveyed a lot of people around the world, about 3,200 retail investors and about 800 odd institutional investors. The third one in a series, as I said. And really coming out of this survey were a number of interesting insights for ourselves as individuals and for the businesses that we run. And I think most importantly, it also shows the beginnings of quite a major divide between the millennial generation and older generations. And I hope to pick out some of those points as we go through. I think that's further exacerbated, although it doesn't come out in this particular piece of work, by an emerging divide as well between men and women. So I think you've got two fissures, if you like, in the client universe, which I think as business people, we all need to think a little bit about. Millennials and women think about money, think about finance, slightly differently to their older baby boomer peers. And I think that's a challenge for us as business people. We need to understand that in the world at large, obviously most of the money is going to be in the hands of millennials and also women in the next 30 years. Women live longer than men. I regret that bitterly, but it's a fact of life. Women live longer than men, and so they're inheriting more and more of the world's wealth. And as business people, particularly those of you who are involved in private wealth management, I think you need to understand what those women want out of their wealth a little bit more clearly than we currently do. And I think this idea of trust is very fundamental to both millennials and women. They're much more purpose-driven than the baby boomer generation was, my generation was. They still want the same things at the end of the day. They want to retire comfortably. They want to own a nice house, go on good holidays, all of those sorts of things. But the way they get there, the way they think about that journey, that narrative that you need to tell them the stories that will help them invest with you, is very different to the story that you would tell a man, particularly of my generation. And so I think some of these things are very interesting to ponder on from a business perspective as we go down the line. The baseline is that our industry, financial services industry, is sort of in the middle of the pack at the moment. That really says that 44% of everybody that we surveyed, some 4,000 odd people, 44% said that they trust the financial services industry. If you are a professional, 44% is not a good number, okay? I think we need to set a baseline there. If you think about what that would be if you asked people about doctors, for instance, I would imagine that their line would be about 80 to 90%. So the gap between where we are today and where we need to be is huge, but it is getting better. It is getting better. 4 years ago, much closer to the financial crisis than we are today, that number was in the low 30s. So it's beginning to climb a little bit back, but still we've got an awfully long way to go. I think the most important number there that I'll try and talk to a little bit is that technology number. And remember, that's across all of the generations. But people, in general, trust their technology provider much more than almost any other service that they currently consume. This is the point about millennials and younger generation people. Now, millennials obviously haven't really had much to do with us and our profession, so at the moment they're not very fed up with it. So they have a higher level of trust than any other of the various generations there. You can see the big gap at Gen Xers, 45 to 54. I don't know, but I guess that's because if you think back 10 years, 35 to 45, they were in the middle of the financial crisis and didn't have the fat on the bone, probably, to survive as the baby boomers did. So I think that dip in that 45 to 54 category is almost certainly the result of the financial crisis. But you can see, the older you get, the more cynical you get about financial services, unfortunately. Life is all about the triumph of hope over experience, but I think that shows that really most of us feel that as we're more and more exposed to this industry, we trust it less and less. And that's not really a very positive feature for any of us. I think this is interesting. It's a bit busy, and hopefully you can see it in your packs. But when I came into the investment management industry, one of the things that was always told to me, was always drummed into me, is do the repeatable things well. Do the repeatable things well, and don't worry so much about the things that you can't control. And in the investment management industry, the one thing that you can't control is performance. But you can control all of the other things. And I think this is a very interesting chart on that theme. It tells you what retail institutional investors most think about when they're hiring a financial advisor. And you can see that right down the bottom of those things are the ability to achieve high returns. Most people actually, that isn't why they hire a financial advisor. They hire a financial advisor who they trust, who's been recommended by someone else, who has the ability to achieve high returns for sure, but is committed to ethics, has a transparent and obvious fee structure, and is compliant. And I think that's very encouraging for financial services people in general, that if you remember to focus on process, people, transparency, communication, and fair fees, that's kind of 75 to 80% of the job. Performance you can't control. That's market dependent and comes and goes. But if you nail the easy stuff, if you use this to build a trustworthy business, most of your clients will be far stickier than you think they will be in times of performance trouble. And I think our industry has kind of forgotten that. We focus very much on selling performance, and we forget that what people actually buy is service. I think for me, this is a very interesting slide that just confirms what I was always taught, was that service